Hello everyone, welcome back to the Journey to National Master. In this episode, I'll be showing you round 5 of Open Marquês de Pombal. This game I played against Pedro Godinho, a 1783 rated player, so slightly above me. And let's see how this game went. So I had the white pieces, I started with d4, my opponent went f5. I kind of prepared. I looked at these games. I had a full day to prepare, and yeah, you like to play the Dutch against d4 and the Tarrasch defense, so I was prepared for both. Here I played bishop g5, which I like to call the refutation of the Dutch. It's just a tricky move that's not very popular and already makes black have to develop in you know not the most common way. Normally in the Dutch, black players like to play e6, play knight f6 and stuff like that. But here, this pawn is pinned, and yeah, this bishop is just annoying here. It's also not easy to just kick the bishop out with like h6, bishop h4, g5, because here I don't even have to. I'm not even losing a piece because I can play e3, and now I'm threatening checkmate here on h5. So yeah, this can become very, very tricky for black if he's not prepared here. My opponent played d6, which is a decent move here. I played e3, and here my opponent surprised me with c6. I wasn't really expecting c6. It just felt weird to, block a natural square for the knight. But, okay, I thought that maybe my opponent just wanted to expand on the queen side with b5, so I thought for a while here. I didn't really prepare the c6 move, so I just played c4, which I felt that it was good at the time because it stops b5 and also just expands. I can put my knight on c3, and now the pawn is already on c4. So yeah, all good in the neighborhood. Here my opponent played g6, I played knight c3, bishop g7, bishop d3, and here my opponent played knight e6. So okay, um it's very clear that my opponent wants to play knight c7, so that was the idea of c6. But still, this feels a bit slow in terms of development for black. I played knight e2. I wasn't really concerned here about knight before this move. It's a waste of time, honestly. I can just play bishop b1, and this knight is looking very weird and stupid here on b4. So I wasn't afraid of that. I just wanted to finish my development. Here my opponent played knight c7. I played d5, which I'm not exactly sure why I rushed with this d5 move here. I could have played something more simple, like, I don't know, queen c2, maybe short castle. I still didn't know where I wanted to castle, honestly, but I ended up playing d5. The only explanation that I can say about this move is that maybe I wanted to fix this pawn here on e7, and in the future, if my opponent tries to break with e6, this d6 pawn will always be permanently weak. But yeah, I'm also running the risk of this d5 pawn being weak in the meantime. So yeah, it's a bit of a committal decision, but still fine. d5. Here my opponent played h6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, so all good. I mean, this is reasonable. Of course, this pin along this diagonal was annoying, but in the meantime, all these pawn moves weakened a lot of the light squares around black's king. I mean, there's a lot of weaknesses here. So yeah, this is like already a very sharp position, I would say. Here my opponent just developed knight f6. I played h4, just putting pressure on these advanced pawns on the king side, asking black what he wants to do. Also, it's important to note that here it might look like black is threatening to take a lot of times on d5 and just win the pawn, but it doesn't really work like that, because let's say after h4, if my opponent tries to grab this pawn here on d5 with something like knight takes on d5 here, I would just win with bishop b5 check, and now I have this discovered attack on the knight, and there's no real way to defend this knight. So yeah, after h4, my opponent played bishop d7, which the engine points out that it's a blunder, and I've just traded the pawns on the king side. I traded one pair of rooks, and here I played d takes on c6. I thought for a while to make this you know, combination. After bishop takes on c6, I took on f5, my pawn took on g2, and we reached this position where, okay, the material is equal, but now I have bishop g6 check, and my opponent played king f8. He can't castle anymore. So, okay, we went very fast here. Let's just rewind a little bit. The computer points out that I shouldn't really take on g5, wasn't really necessary. Better would be to just simply take directly on c6. After something like bishop takes on c6, I can take on f5, bishop takes on g2. Now I have rook g1 attacking this bishop. Let's say bishop c6 makes a lot of sense to come back with a bishop. Now apparently I had c5, which is kind of hard to spot from a distance, and the point is that after d takes on c5, just capturing the pawn, I have bishop g6 check, my opponent goes to f8, I take the queen with check, rook takes, and now I win a piece with bishop takes on c7. I mean, yeah, if I found this during the game, I think I wouldn't really be 1600. Here I played bishop g6 check, which is not the right order. Again, c5 would work very well with you know, the same idea that after d takes on c5, I would have bishop g6 check. But okay, I missed this idea completely, and I ended up just playing bishop g6 check, king f8. c5 would still be good, but I played queen c2, which, you know, it's inferior, of course. Here my opponent played queen d7, and I played long castle. So at this point in the game, I was feeling very confident. I would say that we both had around 30 minutes, although I think I had slightly more than my opponent. And yeah, I mean, just looking at this position, I think it's clear that white is better, and it's all thanks to the king's safety. My king is super safe here, and this king is not super safe. And also, my pieces are like well coordinated and defended, and these minor pieces are very scattered all over the board. And if you look at it, like this bishop and this bishop are undefended, which it's an important thing to note. After castles, my opponent played queen e6, and this move made me think for a long while. Yeah, of course my opponent is threatening the pawn on c4, which I feel like it's a very important pawn for my king's safety. And maybe in the future with a knight jump, it also can target the bishop on g6, although right now it's still defended by the queen, you know. So yeah, I thought for a while, and yeah, here I just played the passive and you know, blunder bishop d3. This is a blunder because in this position I had you know, a sort of winning combination, another one that would you know, net me a very good position, pretty much a piece up. The point is that queen e6 is not really threatening the pawn, because this pawn is kind of poisonous. After knight d4, which I feel like I tried to calculate during the game, but you know, after queen takes on c4, what do you do? Yeah, I didn't really figure out anything after queen takes c4, but apparently here there's combination that wins me material, and it's yeah, it's quite amazing. Again, the point is that after queen takes on c4, I have f3, and this is attacking the bishop. The bishop needs to move. The only square is bishop h3, and after queen h2 we can see a big problem here for black. This bishop is attacked. If my opponent, moves the bishop somewhere that's defended, I have queen takes on h8, and yeah, there's no real way to protect this bishop here on h3 because the queen no longer has the square on e6 because of knight d4. And g4 also doesn't work at all here. Yeah, I think I can just probably just take here on g4, and there's still this problem. And knight takes on g4 doesn't really solve anything. I can just take. So yeah, I would just win the game straight up. The computer suggests that the best move here is queen g8, but yeah, this still loses a piece because yeah, I took two bishops, he took one. So yeah, this would be game over. More complicated would be knight d5, but still here I can just takes here, and I'm still up a piece in the end with 96 check. So yeah, not easy to spot all of this during the game, but spotting these tactics does make a difference at the end of the day. Bishop d3 is just a passive move which prevents a false threat. It is what it is. Here my opponent played rook d8, allows me to go into d4 with tempo, attacking the queen. The queen needs to move. The queen moved to g8. Here I played f3, which is still the best move, but the problem is that after bishop h3 and queen h2, this bishop is no longer hanging, and my opponent can move the bishop from h3 to a protected square. He moved it to e6, which is protected, and now I'm not really winning a piece because everything is protected. So yeah, one tempo can make all the difference, and it is what it is. Here I played c5 because my pawn on c4 was hanging. I still missed another opportunity to get a very, very good position with knight cb5, and very, very tricky move that kind of took me a while, even with the engine, to understand. But the point is that if my opponent, for example, takes here on b5 with the knight, I have knight e6 check, queen takes, the bishop is hanging. But what if my opponent, I don't know, just plays knight f8? What do I do? Now here c5 is strong. Yeah. After d takes on c5, I have bishop takes on c7. My opponent played knight fe8, which is a big blunder again, because it allows transposition to the line with knight cb5, Same idea if knight takes on b5, I have knight takes on e6 check. So yeah, my opponent kind of transposed into the the bad variation. Apparently after c5 my opponent should take on c5 here and allow this position, which, damn bro, it is so complicated, all of this. But yeah, apparently this would give better chances for black, but it's really hard to to spot everything. We both missed a lot of tactical resources. And here, after thinking for a while, because I really took a long time to calculate all of this, so during the game, after thinking for a long while, I just took on d6, which still allows me to have a winning position, but this time I have to play knight e4. Yeah, another move that I missed completely. Let's just see the point. Bishop takes on d4, e takes on d4, And now I guess that this knight is unprotected. If my opponent goes for knight takes on e4, I have bishop takes on c7, and this rook is hanging, this knight is hanging. So yeah, it is a winning position for white here. Yeah, tough to see for me at least. I just played knight takes on e6, which it's bad, just removes the tension after knight takes on e6. Here I played bishop d4. I don't know why, this is like a simplifying move that just gives away all the advantage. I just missed the opportunity to win. Here my opponent just played knight f7, which is even stronger than just trading. I think I was expecting and wanting my opponent to take the bishop, because now I have ideas of rook h1 and infiltrate on the back rank, but my opponent didn't fall for that and play knight f7. And here I like really low on time. I just completely like panicked. I was very frustrated that I couldn't find any tactic, and I played an horrible move actually. I played f4, which actually gives black some advantage now, because like, bro, like here my opponent just simply took, and now like I have these double pawns. My opponent has a passed pawn, and yeah, this was a horrible decision. I don't know what went through my mind, with this. Um, yeah, it's very a weird decision. I should have just admitted, okay, I couldn't find any tactics. Let's go into the end game. After bishop takes on h8, let's say queen takes on h8, queen takes, knight takes here. I mean, I can still put some pressure on black with the bishop and knight versus double knights, and my structure is better than his structure, so yeah, I could still put some pressure on black, but I completely screwed up when playing f4. This is like super bad. And yeah, at this point now black is trying to fight for the win here, already putting pressure on the e5 pawn. I played bishop e6. My opponent took the rook. I took back with the king, and yeah, this is like complicated. My opponent played knight d8. Okay, if my opponent took here, this knight is hanging, right? So I mean, my opponent can't really take on e5 at the moment, so he played knight d8. I played queen f2 check, which doesn't do much because my opponent can just play queen f7 blocking and offering a queen trade, which I don't think it would be good for me to trade queens with the weakness of my double pawns here that I created. Queen h2, yeah, king g7. My opponent brings the king into the game. King e2, I try to do the same. And now my opponent actually finds this very creative and nice move, knight d4 check. The point is that if I take here, he just takes the pawn on c. He takes the bishop on c4 with check, and this is very uncomfortable. So I decide to play king d3, defending the bishop. He moves back to e6, and here I played king back to e2. Saying that, okay, if you want the repetition, I will not say no at this point in time. So okay, my opponent didn't want the repetition. He wanted to punish me for my bad play with g4. Here I played queen g3. Apparently queen h4 would give me some sort of advantage. This is like really hard to understand, but yeah, I mean, I guess the point is that I'm attacking this pawn, and I'm also putting pressure here on e7, so it's kind of hard for black to find a way to deal with this, because queen g6 hangs this pawn, and engine is already suggesting knight d4 check, trying to get a repetition here. But yeah, I don't have to repeat at all. After knight d4 check, I can actually now take on d4, and this would be pleasant for white because of this double threat. But yeah, I didn't spot this No wonder I played queen g3, which is, it feels like the same, but it's not quite the same. It's not as good. Okay, maybe like I didn't spot queen h4 because queen f3 looks very scary. You know, just allowing the queen to infiltrate here looks scary. But after king d2, apparently I am way better than black. But yeah, I mean, I can't really fault myself for not going for this. This looks scary. Okay, queen g3, queen h5, knight e4. My opponent here, uh, you know, threatens to exchange queens. I didn't find anything better than just exchanging queens, so I just exchanged queens, try to grab the pawn on h3. My opponent brought the king, and yeah, this is uncomfortable because now his king is very active, attacking my knight, attacking my pawn. There's no real way to defend both at the same time, so I have to bring the knight back. He takes the pawn. I bring the bishop back here to take on h3 with the piece. My opponent defends the pawn on h3 with knight g5. I take with the knight, which is apparently a mistake. I should just let this pawn be here and move my bishop somewhere, like bishop d3 or king h4 here. But we were already very low on time, like 3 minutes or 2 minutes for both. So I just took the pawn, and now my opponent's king comes in, king e4, king f2, king d3, and yeah, I realized that my opponent is gonna start collecting my pawns, and if he can do that, he will just win the game. So I just decide, okay, let's first bring the bishop back and not allow him to go to c2. He went king d2. I played b4, just trying to exchange the pawns as quickly as possible. If I can exchange these pawns, this would be a draw because I could just sacrifice the bishop for the other pawn. But my opponent was not gonna make my life easy here. He played king c3. I played b5, king b4, just going after the b5 pawn. I play bishop d3, defending this pawn, and now my opponent finally brings the knight in with knight e6. I play king f3. He plays a b6, and yeah, here I play bishop f1. Just passing the ball to my opponent. Let's see what he wants to do. Here my opponent decided to just attack my pawn on b5, and I had to quickly calculate what I should do because this is an important moment where my opponent is indeed gonna win this pawn, and I have to figure out what is the best move to create counterplay. And okay, the one that made the most sense was king e4, bringing the king closer to his pawns. He took on b5. I took with bishop. He took back, and I played king d5, which was a very important move, creating this opposition. And this allows me to capture this pawn, and like black's king is kind of in an awkward position because it is in front of his pawns, and this pawn is still kind of slowing down the pawn race. Also, my opponent can't really come closer right now to pressure this pawn. So yeah, I have my own counterplay. Luckily, my opponent played king a4, king e6, king a3, and here I calculated that this was a draw by force if both players played perfectly, and that's what happened. I mean, here it's important to note that my opponent doesn't really have b5 here because I am in time to come with king c5, and I'm stopping these pawns for the moment. And yeah, it's my pawn is just too fast to you know promote here. So okay, after king d6, my opponent brought the king back, king a3, and I just started pushing the pawns. My opponent also pushed these pawns, and I queen first, which is very important. And after my opponent queens, I have this immediate draw with the queen e3 check, which I found. Thankfully, yeah, just a double attack on the king and the pawn, and once I eliminate this pawn, it's a draw. We agreed to a draw here, and yeah, it was a very, very tense, long game for our game, and yeah, a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of mistakes from both sides, and it ended up in a draw. But yeah, I mean, I just there's no nothing special to point out here. It's just work on the tactics, do a lot of training, and yeah, get better at that, because that was really what made the difference here, was the tactical vision. So yeah, good game, very interesting to study, and very nice practice of tactics. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was kind of a long one, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.